You think you're in control. You think you're investing, building, grinding toward a better life. But what if I told you, you're not chasing money, you're worshiping it? Not just money, but the market itself. The graphs, the tickers, the endless updates. They've become your prayers, your rituals. You don't even realize it, but you've replaced old gods with a new one. And this god demands far more than you think. This market may look like freedom, like opportunity, like progress. But it's not what you think. Because what you're really looking at is a modern religion. One you never chose, but now can't live without. A system that promises hope, but runs on your anxiety. You think you're trading stocks or coins or ideas, but really, you're trading pieces of yourself. And what do you get in return? A fleeting hit of validation, a temporary illusion that you matter. Schopenhauer saw this coming centuries ago. He wrote that human life is driven not by reason, but by a blind, endless will to want. You're not looking for enough, you're addicted to the chase. The next deal, the next trade, the next win. And the market is perfect for that, because it's never done. It always has one more high, one more crash, one more reason to stay hooked. When was the last time you made a trade and actually felt satisfied? Not just excited for a second, but truly at peace? You don't. Because this isn't about money, it's about meaning, about using numbers to prove your worth. You say you want financial freedom, but your every decision is ruled by fear, of missing out, of falling behind, of being invisible. That's not freedom, that's worship. That's a silent prayer whispered through every swipe, every scroll, every obsessive check of the charts. You don't check the market anymore. You check your identity in it. Did you rise today? Or did you fall? Are you winning yet? Are you someone yet? You used to ask yourself if you were loved, if you were good, if you were enough. Now you ask if you're profitable. The brutal truth is this: the market is your new god, not because it deserves to be, but because you've made it so. And like any god, it demands sacrifices. Your time, your focus, your relationships, your peace of mind. It promises heaven, but keeps you waiting in purgatory. It offers just enough success to keep you from leaving, but never enough fulfillment to let you rest. And here's the part no one tells you. The market doesn't care. It will take everything from you and never look back. It has no memory, no mercy, no love. It feeds on your attention. It monetizes your need to matter. And all the while, it whispers the same lie. Just one more. Just a little further. Then you'll be enough. But you never are. Because this isn't a journey. It's a treadmill. The moment you think you've arrived, the finish line moves again. The next goal appears. The next risk. The next trend. And so you run, faster, harder, hoping that this time it will feel different. But it never does. Because deep down, you're not investing. You're begging. Begging the system to see you, to choose you, to make you feel worthy. You don't want a fortune. You want to matter. You want to feel like your life has weight, that it means something. And someone, somewhere, told you that the market could give you that. But it can't. It never could. It was never built to love you. It was built to use you. And you, unknowingly, became its most devoted follower. This isn't a financial problem. It's a spiritual one. And the longer you ignore it, the deeper it pulls you in. This is the brutal truth Schopenhauer warned us about. And in the next part, we'll talk about what happens when this worship goes too far, when the stakes become your identity, and your self-worth hangs on the numbers you can't control. If this new god, the market, doesn't get challenged, the consequences aren't just emotional. They're existential. If you keep tying your identity to what the market thinks of you, if your self-worth continues to rise and fall with your portfolio, then you're not just risking money, you're risking yourself. Here's why the stakes are higher than they look. Every time you let the market determine your mood, your direction, your value, you shrink. You become less of a person and more of a reaction. Your day is no longer yours. It's owned by the volatility of a system that doesn't even know your name. You may tell yourself you're just playing the game, but what happens when the game starts playing you? Because that's exactly what it does. The market teaches you to look outside for everything: validation, security, identity. And the more you do that, the more fragile you become on the inside. One dip in the chart and your sense of self crumbles. One missed opportunity and your confidence disappears. You're not just losing trades, you're losing clarity, you're losing emotional sovereignty. And it doesn't stop there. When you start measuring life in gains and losses, everything else becomes transactional too. Friendships become networking, time becomes hustle, silence becomes wasted opportunity. You forget how to be still, how to think for yourself, how to simply exist without optimizing or competing. This system is not neutral. It shapes how you see the world. You begin to look at others as threats, as rivals in an invisible race. Even your own rest feels like failure. Even your happiness feels guilty if it wasn't earned through some external achievement. This is what Schopenhauer meant when he said that our suffering is self-perpetuated, because we attach ourselves to things that can never truly satisfy us. And the market, more than almost anything, thrives on that very attachment. Imagine being in a relationship where the other person constantly changes their mind, never gives you what you need, and always keeps you guessing. You'd call that abusive. But somehow, you've accepted it from the market. You've convinced yourself that this stress is just part of the path to success, that this insecurity is normal, that this fear, this constant hustle, is what life is supposed to feel like. But what if it's not? What if you've mistaken chaos for growth? What if the very system you're depending on is the one eroding your sense of self? The longer you let the market define your value, the more disconnected you become, from people, from meaning, from your own inner compass. This is why people burn out chasing numbers. This is why some of the most successful traders feel empty at the top, because they got everything they thought they wanted: money, power, recognition, and it still wasn't enough. It never is. Not because they failed, but because they were asking the market to answer questions it was never designed to answer. Questions like, who am I? Why do I matter? Am I enough? And here's the real danger. The longer you confuse success with self-worth, the more you need bigger wins just to feel normal. That $1,000 trade that once made your day, now it barely moves the needle. You're desensitized, addicted to the rush. But underneath it all, there's fear. A quiet, creeping fear that if the numbers stop, if the graph ever flatlines, you might have to face the emptiness you've been outrunning. So let's be honest. The stakes aren't just financial, they're psychological, they're spiritual. And unless you break the cycle, unless you stop worshiping at the altar of volatility, you will never feel free. You will always be chasing a feeling the market cannot give. This isn't about walking away from trading. It's about waking up from the illusion that it will save you. In the next part, we'll dig into how this cycle began, why your need for meaning got attached to money in the first place, and what Schopenhauer reveals about the deep emotional hunger driving it all. It didn't start with trading apps or financial news. It started much earlier, before you even knew what the market was. The craving you feel today, the hunger to be seen as successful, valuable, winning, it's not new. It's an old emotional script you've been carrying since childhood. The market didn't create it. It just gave it a stage. Schopenhauer argued that the root of our suffering lies in the relentless will to exist, to be validated, to matter. And in your earliest years, you began forming an identity based on how the world responded to you. Were you praised when you achieved something? Did love only come when you succeeded, behaved, or performed well? If so, your mind learned a dangerous lesson, that worth must be earned, that existence has to be justified. Fast forward to adulthood, and suddenly the market is the perfect stage to replay this internal drama, because it offers what looks like clear proof of value: numbers, scores, rankings. If the market goes up, it must mean you're doing something right. You're smart. You're relevant. You exist for a reason. But when it crashes, or when you lose, the fear returns. That old familiar voice says, "Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I never was." You're not chasing money. You're chasing approval, often from people you don't even know. You want to prove to the world, or maybe to your parents, or even just to your younger self, that you made it, that you matter now, that all your effort, all your sacrifices were not in vain. The market becomes a kind of surrogate parent, one whose attention you crave, one whose affection you measure in green candles and profit margins. This is what Schopenhauer meant by the neurotic will, that endless, irrational hunger to merge with something that can finally make you feel complete. It's not love, it's not ambition, it's emotional dependency. And the market, fast, unpredictable, intoxicating, is the perfect place to feed it. Because every trade feels like a test, every win feels like redemption, every loss feels like rejection. And just like in childhood, you start to feel like you're only as good as your last result. But here's the trap. The market isn't built to validate you. It can't. It doesn't know who you are. It has no memory, no intention, no soul. It reacts. And if you keep handing over your emotional life to something that can't return it, you will always feel unstable. Loved one minute, discarded the next. Euphoric at noon, empty by nightfall. It's not just exhausting, it's dehumanizing, because you begin to see yourself as a product, something that has to constantly perform, improve, and compete. You stop being a human being and start being a ticker symbol with feelings. And over time, you forget what it was like to simply be, to live without constantly needing to earn your own right to exist. Schopenhauer didn't have trading platforms in his day, but he understood this dynamic better than most modern thinkers. He knew that when people are disconnected from inner meaning, they turn outward and attach themselves to systems that seem to offer purpose. But it's a trap. These systems don't heal the inner wound. They exploit it. The market becomes your identity, not because it's meaningful, but because you've never learned how to feel whole without a scoreboard. This is why so many people spiral. Not because they love money, but because they don't love themselves. They use the market to feel powerful, but deep down, they feel helpless. They use it to look successful, but inside, they feel unworthy. Every trade becomes a desperate attempt to fix something that isn't financial at all. And no matter how smart they are, how skilled, how on top of it, they can't shake the emptiness. Because the market can't fix the past. It can only distract from it. But here's the thing. Distraction is not healing. And the longer you confuse the two, the more trapped you become. In the next part, we'll talk about what real healing looks like, and why true power doesn't come from winning in the market, but from no longer needing the market to feel like you matter. Real power doesn't begin with victory. It begins with detachment. The moment you stop needing the market to tell you who you are, you reclaim something the system never wanted you to have. Freedom. Not financial freedom, but psychological freedom. The kind Schopenhauer believed was only possible when you stop chasing illusions and begin facing yourself. Because here's the honest truth. No number will ever be enough. No trade will ever heal what was broken. No gain will fill the space where your sense of worth should live. That's not a financial problem. That's an identity problem. And the longer you try to solve an internal crisis with external success, the more distant real peace becomes. So what does healing actually look like? It looks like stepping back from the chart and asking questions that don't show up on earnings reports. Who am I without this constant chase? What am I afraid of when the noise goes quiet? What part of me still believes I need to earn my right to rest, to be loved, to simply exist? These are hard questions because they strip away the illusion of progress. The illusion that if you just keep going, one day it will all feel right. But Schopenhauer warned against this fantasy. He said that true peace doesn't come from feeding desire, it comes from seeing through it. Recognizing that the need to be constantly validated is not a strength, but a sign of emotional captivity. You've spent years chasing signals, analyzing trends, perfecting strategies. But have you ever studied yourself with the same focus, your fears, your emotional triggers, your unspoken belief that your value lies in what you can produce rather than who you already are? That belief is the real prison. And no external system, no amount of money, no market high can break you out of it. Because even if you win, you'll still be inside, clinging to the next trade for reassurance, terrified of the next loss that might shatter the illusion again. Healing starts when you see the market for what it truly is, a tool, not a god, a space for exchange, not a source of meaning. It starts when you look at your own reflection without needing it to be dressed in success. It starts when you give yourself permission to be, even when you're not winning. This doesn't mean walking away from ambition. It means walking away from dependence. It means choosing to stop performing for an invisible audience, to stop sacrificing your inner life for the appearance of outer progress. It means saying, I am already whole, even if I never hit the next goal. That kind of self-respect, that emotional maturity, it's rare, but it's possible, and it's powerful. Because when you no longer need to prove your worth to anyone, not the market, not your peers, not even to yourself, you become unshakable. The chaos of the world no longer dictates the peace inside you. That's when you know you're finally free. And ironically, that's also when you start making the best decisions, not out of fear, not out of desperation, but from clarity, from calm, from a grounded place that no volatility can touch. In the next and final part, we'll explore how to build this kind of resilience, not by escaping the system, but by refusing to let it define you. This is the path from worship to wisdom, from chasing the market to choosing yourself. True love, Schopenhauer said, is not about merging with another person to fill our emptiness. It's about standing whole beside someone, not needing them, but choosing them. The same truth applies to how we relate to the market. When you finally stop needing it to make you feel complete, you're free to engage with it from a place of strength, not dependence. This is where the shift happens. This is where the worship ends, and wisdom begins. Because once you see the illusion, you can't unsee it. You start to notice how often your decisions were driven by fear of missing out, not strategy. How your highs were less about profit and more about feeling like you finally mattered. You see how the market didn't just consume your time, it shaped your identity. It became your mirror. And now you get to break that mirror and build a new one. A mirror made of presence, of peace, of being able to sit still in your own company without reaching for a dopamine hit from the next price movement. This is not weakness, it's power. Because when you can walk away from the screen and still feel grounded, still feel whole, still feel worthy, you've taken back everything the system tried to steal from you. This is what Schopenhauer called the inner revolution, a turning away from illusions and a turning inward, toward the only thing you can ever really control, your relationship with yourself. And ironically, this is also what gives you real clarity in how you relate to the world, including money, work, and ambition. You stop being seduced by noise. You stop jumping at every trend. You learn to act, not react. you begin to see that worth is not something you chase. It's something you decide. It's not tied to results or numbers or recognition. It's something that lives in you, quietly but fiercely, even when everything else falls away. This is the root of all resilience. And it's what allows you to move through the world, yes, even through the market, with confidence and calm. Because when you no longer need to win to feel valuable, you start winning in a way that actually matters. You invest not to prove something, but to build something. You trade not to feel alive, but because you are alive, and you're grounded enough to choose how to live. This is the kind of freedom no system can offer you. It has to be built from within, slowly, deliberately, through the hard inner work of facing your patterns, your cravings, your fears, and letting them go, not overnight, but piece by piece, day by day, with patience and honesty. And yes, you'll be tested. There will be losses. There will be moments when the old hunger returns, whispering that you're falling behind, that you're not enough. But now you'll know the voice. And more importantly, you'll know it isn't you. Because you've already chosen yourself. Fully. Finally. So now, ask yourself one last question. What if you didn't need to be chosen by the market? What if today you chose yourself? That's where the real story begins. That's the revolution. If this message reached something deep inside you, don't let it stop here. Let this be the point where your story changes, where you stop worshiping what you can't control and start honoring what you can, your time, your attention, your presence. Because in the end, the market will always move. But your peace? That's yours to protect. Always. This is the end of the video, but not the end of the journey. If something inside you stirred while listening, don't just nod and move on. Don't let this become just another piece of content you consume and forget. Let it be the pause, the pivot, the moment something in you shifts. Because the truth is, most people will hear this and keep scrolling. They'll go back to the charts, back to the noise, back to the endless pursuit of enough. They'll keep worshiping at the altar of the market, hoping it gives them what it never can. But you don't have to. You're here because a part of you is ready for something more. Not more information, more truth, more depth, more ownership of your life. And that's what this channel is here for, to go deeper, to cut through the noise, to challenge the stories you've inherited and expose the systems that have quietly taken control of your emotional life. So if this video resonated, make it count. Write in the comments, I do not need to be chosen to feel whole. Not just to support the channel, but as a commitment to yourself. A declaration that you're done playing small, done outsourcing your worth, done letting algorithms shape your identity.